Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a great day. Today is what's today? Wednesday? Thursday? I lose track of the days. Thursday is always a very nice day because you're almost done with the week. That said, you're not really almost done with the week. You have a full Thursday and a full Friday left, so make sure you get to work and you make the most of it. You only have one day. Let's see. If someone's on YouTube, by the way, watching this, please leave a message. Type something in, because yesterday the YouTube chat wasn't working. And if you don't hear me say YouTube chat's working, well, then we may have a problem. It says all three channels are connected, so we should be good. But you never know. Do you use live tells? Well, of course we use live tells. We use all things available to us to make good decisions. That'd be like saying, do you not use game theory? Do you not use exploitative plays? Do you not use tells? Do you not consider chip stack sizes? Of course, use all of these things. YouTube seems to be working. That's good. Sometimes it all works. Speaking of live tells, today we're going to talk about winning my second World Poker Tour title. Does anyone know where that was? I know where it was. It was at Foxwoods. So I have a whole lot of notes here because, like I said, last time we talked about winning my first WPT title, I have an awful memory. So, this tournament was very shortly after I took second place at a World Poker Tour in Niagara Falls. I lost heads up to Scott Clements. When you get to the final table and you win a tournament, and you get to the next one, it's almost like anything besides first is a bit of a letdown. But in reality, that was a pretty good score. I think I got $680,000 for that one. Actually, that was funny. That was in Canada. And whenever I bought in for the tournament, the Canadian dollar was worth less than the US dollar. So $10,000 buy-in was actually like $9,500. And then, somehow over the course of a week, when I cashed out, Canadian dollar was worth more. So I bought in for like $9,500, but I cashed out as if the money was like $10,500. That's lucky. You want to talk about luck in life. I just got a free 10% bonus for no real reason. So anyway, I lost to Scott Clements. Then to try to get Player of the Year. I've had one shot at Player of the Year in my whole career. Back then it was the Card Player of the Year. That was by far the most prestigious Player of the Year. And I had to get something like 10th or better at the final tournament at Bellagio. It was a $10,000 buy-in, I think, and I did not get there. I did get in the money, though. I got, 53rd place. They actually did this thing where they used to pay 100 places if the tournament got more than 400 people. Talk about a silly idea, huh? So I think the tournament had like 405 people or something like that. And so it paid 100 people. And I took 53rd. That was a very flat structure. Like, you know how they pay 15% of the field now in a lot of tournaments? It used to be even more flat because in the money would be like 15,000, then, 100th would be 15,000, then 50th would be something like 18,000. Like, essentially no payout jump. So, that was fun. Anyway, we went to Foxwoods, and this was a big tournament. 412 people played, and some people who got in the money. You may know some of these people. We had Christian Harder. We had Freddie Deeb. We had Will the Thrill. If you all know, everyone knows Will the Thrill if you've ever interacted with Will the Thrill. We had Gavin Smith, Kevin Saul, who was in the chat just the other day. Hello, Kevin. Larry Greenberg, who won his first WPT this year. Congrats to Larry. We had Bill Gazes, Alex Bulletin, John Friedberg, Bill Ivey, and Daniel Negreanu. I remember I played quite a few hands with Negreanu in this tournament. I was seated directly to his left, which is exactly where you want to be. And I kind of had the idea in my mind that, quote-unquote, like live pros, the older guys, and Negreanu's not old, don't get me wrong, but the people who are not online grinders folded too much to aggression. So I remember I 3-bet him like 6 times in a row. And it worked out. Who'd have thought? So that went well. So, I'm trying to figure out exactly how this final table went. We got down to 6 people. And Actually, so someone mentioned, do I use live tells? Before we get into that, I remember when we were down to maybe 30 or 40 people, one of these players I just named, one of the good players, I'm not going to out who it was, and a situation came up where someone raised, he called. No, how did this go? My memory's so bad. What it amounted to, I think, is someone raised, this player called, I shoved all in for like 30 big blinds with pocket kings. So it went like 3.5 big blinds, call, shove for 30. Initial guy folds back to the player in question, and he thought for forever, was getting ready to fold, and then I subtly picked up my hand and did this. Something I literally never do. I did just like this. And he sits there, he gets his cards, he puts his cards back down, starts thinking about it all of a sudden. So this is a very classic tell that bad players do in their bluffing, right? Bad players often will try to conceal themselves, or they'll get happy when things are going their way. And anyway, this was a very, very subtle thing. I say it's subtle. It's not actually that subtle because I did this. It's not subtle at all. But he took his cards, put them back down on the table, thought for like another 5 minutes, and finally called with ace-queen. So I had kings, he had ace-queen, and I held up. That's pretty lucky. Now, you may say, don't you just want him to fold if he has an ace? No, we're trying to win the tournament. We're already in the money. There are no payout jumps. We are trying to win. We want to get chips, and you get chips by getting called when you're a big favorite. So, we were a big favorite. We got called, fortunately, and we got the double. I'm trying to think. Throughout that tournament, I think that was the only hand where I was actually at risk for most of it, so that was pretty nice. Yes, D. Nelson, I did a reverse tell. I virtually do none of this today. I think once people understand that you're competent, they kind of just ignore most of what you do. And I really have a difficult time thinking that... I have a hard time assuming I know what people think. However, one very, very obvious situation that comes up, though, is that if it's clear that someone is folding, they're obviously folding, okay? He was obviously folding. And you want to call, it's free to do something, right? The problem, though, is that good players will act as if they are going to fold, but then not fold, to see if you do something. Because if you just sit there and let them fold, well, then you probably did not mind the fold. But if you do something, then very often that means to the good player, oh, this guy wants me to call, right? So you'll see players like Antonio Esfandiari does a lot of this. He'll hem and haw, get his cards up, get like he's ready to muck them, not muck them, etc., etc. So keep that in mind. If someone's here on Twitch or Periscope or Twitter, please type something. I'm trying to see if my chat aggregator is working. It looks like now only YouTube's working. So, anyway, we got that call. We get to the final table. All right, we have Twitch here. Twitch is good. And Twitter may not be working, though. Facebook's working as well. Thank you. Thank you all for helping me test. Instagram's obviously here because it has its own dedicated device. It's lucky for Twitch. Looks like Periscope's not working, though. Okay, we get to the final table. Final table features me, Jonathan Jaffe, who some of you may know. They said that he was a dolphin trainer at the World Series of Poker. Turns out he was one of the best heads-up players in the world. Then we have Charles Marchese, who was the lone recreational player at the table. I had some intel about him that I learned just by keeping my ears open. We'll talk about this later. We had David Pham, the Dragon. We mentioned him earlier. David Pham always gives me trouble. I love David Pham. Jack Schonbacher, who's a very, very good cash game player. I played with him quite a few times. We're friends. And he's very, very tough to play against because he will put you in miserable spots over and over and over and over and over. Then we have Mike the Mouth Matisow. So right off the bat, at the final table, I end up busting Mike Matisow, and he berated me over and over and over for it. I'm friendly with Mike, and I think he has lots of respect for my game. One day we were playing in San Jose, and Periscope's working. Good. Hello, Periscope, which is also Twitter. Thank you for posting something. It just seems like you're on a significant delay. Also, I changed the sound a little bit because I noticed it was off on YouTube. Let me know if the sound seems off to you in the stream. I changed it by 0.03 seconds. May not seem like a big deal, but it is. Okay. Mike Madisell told me at Bay 101 one time, me and him sat at the same table all day. At the end of the day, he's like, Jonathan, I don't think I saw you play a hand, yet you've tripled up. It's like, yeah. Just sat there and grinded it up slowly. Didn't do anything fancy. Played no big hands. And anyway, Mike is on the tighter side, for those who do not know. You'll actually find a lot of people who have the nickname The Mouth, or Will The Thrill, tend to actually be pretty nitty. So, I know he's a little bit nitty, and some hand came up where I think I raised and he went all in and I called it off with ace-jack, or maybe I had pocket nines. I remember it was ace-jack against pocket nines. I never really remember who has what whenever you're flipping, because it just doesn't matter. But we got it all in, flipping, and I won. I busted him. He has told me every single time I see him, that was the worst call in history. How could you call my 20 big blind all in with only ace-jack or pocket nines, one of the two? And that was good. Next, Jack Schombacher busted. Funny enough, Jack and I both played this same tournament, I think, 2 or 3 years later at Foxwoods. And we both got in the money again. He took, I think, 12th place, and I took 8th place. And every day, we would go to David Burke restaurant in Foxwoods. It's very, very good. We would go there every single day. So that was nice. Then David Pham busted. I don't remember how David Pham busted. At this point, we're starting to get significant money. And then we had a fun hand against Charles Marchese to bust him in third. Now, I don't know exactly how I heard this, but the day before, or the morning of the final table, very often they do player interviews. And there's media around. Everyone's giving interviews to the various poker outlets like Card Player and Poker News. And so somehow I heard Charles say, yeah, I really need to take third place so that I can pay off my house. Hello? Yeah. So now that I know this, the question is, will he actually adjust his play to try to take third place to pay off his house? And listen, there's nothing wrong with this mindset, by the way. Very often, when you discuss money, there's some amount of money that is essentially a lot, and any amount above that amount is kind of irrelevant. Actually, I think he needed to get more than fourth place. So he needed to take third place. So I know this now. It was very clear to me he was playing very snugly early in the tournament, so I played lots of hands. I tried to raise a lot into his blinds. And then what happened was we got down to 3 players, and then right off the bat, immediately, I think he must have raised. I must have 3-bet, I think, with ace-10, and I think he jammed with jack-8. And I called with no problem with the ace-10, because I assumed correctly that he would be jamming much wider now, because any amount he gets more than, third place or better is just gravy, right? He's very happy with that. And he had jack-8. So I had ace-10 against jack-8, and I think that's how it went down. And I won that hand. So I'm sure I'm butchering all these hands, by the way. You can go back and watch these. I think World Poker Tour will let you watch them on their website. I think if you're a member of Club WPT, maybe they're on the internet. I don't know. Let's see. People are asking me a bunch of random questions. We'll get to those in a bit. So anyway, now we're down to heads up between me and Jonathan Jaffe. Now, I don't know much about Jonathan Jaffe besides he was the only other player who was playing lots of pots and fighting hard. I mean, I guess David Pham was fighting hard too, but most of the other players, when they get to the final table, they're just kind of hanging out. And I played with Jonathan Jaffe throughout the tournament. And he played well, loose, aggressive, does crazy stuff. Turns out he really does crazy stuff. I remember one hand recently I played with him in the World Poker Tour Tournament of Champions where I got this jacket. Maybe it was the year before. Anyway, he had, I think, 6-3 suited and played like a 4-bet pot pre-flop against queens, and it came like 10-6-3 and he just stacked the guy in the first level. It was very funny. So, we're playing heads up. Turns out, we end up playing what is the longest heads up match ever in World Poker Tour history up until that point. Actually, right after this, they changed the structure of the final table from being, I think it was hour levels heads up to 30-minute levels. And they also made it at the tournament director's discretion to change the structure if they feel inclined. Because we played until, I believe, 5:30 a.m. So we started at 4 p.m. at the final table. We got heads up at something like 8 or 9. And then we played heads up for something like 6 or 8 hours. It was a long heads-up match. Essentially what happened is the shallow stack won every single hand. We started with 100 big blinds deep, and we eventually got really shallow. And I managed to win. I honestly have no clue which hand I won with. I do not know. But I won. I'm the worst at storytelling. Hopefully you enjoy these stories. If you don't, well, you can go listen to an actual storyteller. But I won. They gave me this trophy. This is the globe that goes on top of this thing. If you're listening to this, sorry, you can't see it. I'm showing off a big trophy. It says, you can't really see it. It says, 2008 champion Foxwoods World Poker Finals, $10,000 no limit hold'em events. And this globe sits right on top like this. And it looks kind of like this. It's very, very big. And it's also very, very heavy. I say it's very heavy. It probably weighs 8 pounds, 10 pounds. So you get this giant globe. Doesn't really fit in the shelf, but that's okay. They did not design. I didn't design the bookshelf around the trophy. This one sits on top. It's a very, very nice trophy. Also, they give you a World Poker Tour bracelet. I don't think they give these out anymore. I wouldn't know. I haven't won one in quite a while. Has a little diamond in it. This is my second one. As you see, we have 2. So there they are. So yeah, that was good. I eventually became friends with Jonathan Jaffe. I met my wife because of Jonathan Jaffe. I was playing I was at a tournament, and they always lose my money when I wire it to them. I know this company always loses my money. So I had to go try to collect the money. Usually it's a 3 or 4 hour process. I understood that. And I went down there. They said, come back in a few hours. I said, sure. And then Jonathan Jaffe stops me and says, hey, do you want to play a $100 sit and go with me, 4 guys, and their 4 girlfriends? 9 people. And I say, sure, it's a $100 game. We're just playing around, having fun. Eventually, a lady comes up behind me, my wife, Amy, my now wife, Amy, and I ask her, what is she doing here? Why is she not married, etc., etc. She apparently liked this. Again, I'm butchering the story. She tells it way better than I do. And we go out to dinner after this. I kind of punt away the $100 tournament, and we go out to dinner, and she leaves. Then one of my students, Steve Begleiter, who final tabled the main event, asked me to come to a charity tournament in New York City where Amy lived about a month later. So we chatted a bit on the internet, and then I was staying at a hotel that was way too expensive here in New York City, and she said, why don't you come stay with me? So then I moved in, and that was it. Josh says she probably tells it better. She definitely tells it better. Haven't been to the gym in a day or two, so we have to get our workouts in. So I met my wife through Jonathan Jaffe, and then at the Tournament of Champions, I think 2 or 3 years ago, Jonathan Jaffe actually told me, I don't know why, maybe we had a drink or two. He told me essentially that at this final table, and in the heads-up match, I almost certainly crushed him in terms of equity. And he said what I was doing, what he was not adjusting for, is the fact that when he raised off of like a 30 big blind stack or shorter, I would just jam all in very, very wide. Because, we've discussed this a few times in the past, I knew that he was the best heads-up player in the world. Maybe not the best. One of the top 3 heads-up players in the world in heads-up sit-and-goes. That's what he did. He would sit in the $5,000 heads-up sit-and-goes all day, every day, and play whoever wanted to play with him. I, on the other hand, I've played a decent amount of heads-up sit-and-goes. I've won in the $1,000 games. I never really tried to progress much higher than that because I assumed those people must be bosses. And turns out they were. They beat everyone. So, I know I'm at a disadvantage to Jonathan Jaffe heads-up. So what strategy do you use if you are at a disadvantage to your opponent? Well, I know he's going to be very good post-flop, better than me. So if he's better than me, I want to make sure that I play a game that I know how to play decently well. And I know how to play all-in or fold strategy decently well. So, he would raise, I'd go all in, probably slightly wider than game theory optimal. Maybe I was shoving way wider, I don't actually know. And he would fold a lot. So, he would raise, I would jam, he would fold. He would raise, I would jam, he would fold. I would raise, he would call. Now, I get to play a pot in position, and I get to see the flop, so I get to realize my equity decently well. Now, sometimes, I'm sure sometimes he called me, sometimes he had a good hand, etc., etc. But if you are at a disadvantage, you want to make sure you're playing a game that you understand. And if you don't understand deep stacked heads up no limit hold'em, or even shallow stacked heads up no limit hold'em post flop, you want to go to a place that you understand. And alternatively, say you know that your opponent is really bad with dealing with a particular play. Like say they play really poorly if you lead into them. Let's just say they fold every time unless they have a pair. Well, clearly leading is going to be a great strategy against them, right? Because they're going to play poorly against it. If you can find spots where your opponent just messes up, then you're going to crush them. So, that's it. I won this tournament. They gave me... How much did they give me? $1.1 million. Guess that's my biggest score. That's it. I have nothing else to say about this. That was the Foxwoods World Poker Finals. I don't even see the year on this. Oh, it must have been 2008. I read it was 2008. And then, like I mentioned, I actually took 8th place in this event again. I don't think anyone's ever won the same event twice, or at least they hadn't back then. And I thought I was going to win. I got it all in. 8-handed, with 8 people left, with kings against ace-jack. I was the chip leader. Opponent was... I'm sorry, I was the chip leader with the final 8. And I got it all in with kings against the guy who was second in chips. If I won this, I would have had like 90% of the chips or something absurd. And instead, I lost. When the ace came, I think it was on the turn, I felt like I got punched in the face. I cried a little bit. I had my glasses on. This is when I was afraid to show my eyeballs. I had my glasses on. I cried a little bit. I've never cried at the poker table before besides that. No one knows it besides all of you now. And, man, it was brutal. I really did feel like I got punched in the face. And that was fun. That's why we play poker, to feel it. I felt it. You want to know why? I felt it because I really cared about getting 3 WPT titles. I've sort of let that go as time has progressed, as more and more people have gotten 3 titles, just because, you know, I'm not playing nearly the volume a lot of people are. And I let go of that. But I thought I was going to get it then. Because, like I said, I was 70% to just have all the chips. And if you have all the chips, you're probably going to win. But that was the last time I've been to Foxwoods. That scarred me. Actually, what happened is that tournament only had something like 70 people. It was a small tournament. Very, very small tournament. And they started making their buy-ins much smaller, like a lot of places have done. And it really just was not worth it to travel there anymore. We discussed that yesterday, when it's worth it to travel to a tournament. If they have 1-1500, I'm not going to go. All right, we have a bunch of questions that have come in. Seems like all the chat's working today. That's lucky. You see watch from behind me. I honestly don't know which version this is. I'm scared to even try to pull it out. This has this cover on it. I actually don't think I've read this whole thing. I should read the whole thing, though. I heard it's very good. Let's see. Someone's saying something about rat. Kevin, I don't know who you're talking to. Is the breakfast in Montreal just for my students? It is for anyone who signs up at this point. So I'm capping the breakfast at, I think, 21 people because that's how big the room is. And we're already at something like 17. So we have a few spots left. I imagine, basically, it's first come, first serve. If you got the email and you reply to the email, you'll be in. If you're not on my email list, well, you messed up. You can get on my email list just by going to pokercoaching.com and signing up for a free trial of poker coaching. Yeah, we're having a completely free breakfast for you. Someone's paying for it, probably me. Probably I am. We're having a completely free breakfast for everyone in Montreal. So you may say, why am I going to Montreal? It's a World Poker Tour tournament. I don't normally travel for WPTs anymore. This one's special because Party Poker is putting it on. It's a $5 million guaranteed. It's already a very big tournament. There's also a 10,000 tournament at the same time, and a 1,600 tournament, and a $500 WPT event that's going to get a boatload of people. So remember, I travel when I can play lots and lots of volume, and this is a very good amount of volume in a week. So on November 1st, we're going to be having a private breakfast. We have a room at the Rail, which is the restaurant at Montreal, and I'm going to buy everyone breakfast. We don't really have any agenda besides just to sit, talk, and hang out. But yeah, if you got the email, do that. I'm also going to Baja Mar a week after that, and there's a chance we'll do something there. I don't really know. We'll see. Nick says, the Party Poker satellites are very soft for the playground events. I mean, Actually, Party Poker's doing this cool thing now, where if you win a satellite on their site, you actually get to use that money for any tournament you want, any live tournament you want. I think that's really nice. That way, like, say something comes up and you can't attend, they don't just say, sorry, you're out of luck. So I like the way Party Poker's doing that. They're doing a lot of things right. Let's see. Why aren't you married? And she still ended up marrying her. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with her. Just unlucky. There's plenty wrong with me. I just must be very lucky. Is it helpful to categorize hands according to the big three of PLO? Players in hand, stack to pot ratio, and position. I honestly don't know. Certainly those things matter. Obviously some hands, and both No Limit Hold'em and PLO, play better multi-way or heads up. Obviously stack to pot ratio is very important. Or just how deep you are. And position is very important. So yeah, I suppose yes. Really though, in PLO, especially in PLO, or any game where they give you a lot of cards, as long as your hand is like reasonable, it's going to be playable enough. The problem is a lot of people don't know what reasonable is. They think, ace 9 4 2 with a suit is reasonable, and it's not. Or they think something like jack 8 7 5 is reasonable, and it's not. Depending on the spots, right? Certainly not playable under the gun. So you just need to make sure you understand roughly what a decent hand is, and that's probably going to be good enough for the vast majority of PLO games. All right, let's see. Do I have family in Detroit? I do not. I have family in Pensacola, Florida. We see a few people from Pensacola here. Hello, Pensacola. Hope the hurricane treated you well. How have I altered my strategy as I get short stacked against people who are sitting to my left? I'm not sure what you're asking, Milan. Basically, you just play better cards. That's it. There was a question earlier. I forget what it was. Someone asked me a question. If I haven't answered your question yet, type it in again. It had to do something with stack sizes. Sorry, I missed it. It was way back at the beginning here. Let's see if I can find it. I missed the question. I apologize. You all type too much. That's okay, though. It means we're popular. It means we're doing it. It means we're officially doing it. All right. Will any of my books be relatable to the bottom micro stakes? Absolutely. I have a book. Come on, book. Obviously, I grabbed the wrong one. Got to put this paperweight down. Here it is. This book right here is very applicable to small stakes poker cash games. I tried to title it as easy as I possibly could for you to find it. Strategies for beating small stakes poker cash games. There you go. You have it. How am I a better player today than I was a few years ago? I study a lot more now. Actually, I used to always study a lot, but I'm always getting better. There are now tools available that make studying easier and easier and easier. I am now associating with the best online players in the world, which is also very, very nice because you get to learn from them. And it's good. Anyway, this is a nice, simple book that will teach you to beat small stakes, no limit hold'em. It's not a big book, as you see. It's small. It just discusses, pre-flop ranges here. We discuss how to play after the flop, etc., etc., etc. It's very cheap, too. You can actually get the audiobook of this completely for free if you never sign up for Audible at jonathanlittlepoker.com/free. I try to make it easier for you all. If you want to make it even easier, jlpoker.com/free. Also have tons and tons of blogs there that you can read. What about small stakes tournaments? Funny you'd ask. Strategies for beating small stakes poker tournaments. These are actually similar enough. They are different. They have different content. The games are different. This one's a little bit bigger because it has to deal with more stack size, or it has to deal with more deep stacked play. But there they are, 2 books. Both of them you can get for free at jonathanlittlepoker.com/free in the audiobook format. And if you speak Chinese, we just have this come out. Strategies for beating small stakes poker tournaments, but in Chinese. They had a book launch in China for me. I wasn't there personally, but I did a Skype call, and it was amazing. There was a room with like 60 people asking me questions in Chinese, and we had a translator and everything. It was a lot of fun. As you see, it actually is in Chinese on one side. Come on, camera. Now, look what I did to the camera. There we go. Chinese on one side, American. You can tell I'm a writer, right? Chinese on one side, English on the other side. Can you recommend a site for online players in America? No, not really. Just keep the minimum on whatever site you play on. That's my recommendation to you. Obviously, if you're playing in a regulated place, there are plenty of regulated sites that you can play on. Let's see. When playing nightly tournaments, you're faced with scenarios where there are 3 players to the left, each have 9 big blinds. You're constantly faced with extreme pressure to chop. Please talk you out of this. Listen, I talk about this in a few of my books. And what it amounts to is every time you chop, you give away experience of playing for money that matters. You always want to play for money that matters because whenever you get heads up in a big tournament, they're not going to chop with you. I've played heads up for $1 million only 3 times, and I have never talked to chop at all. I was not offered a chop, and I did not offer a chop. So you need experience in that spot so that you know how to play, especially if your opponent thinks you are a recreational player and they're like the best in the world. Like Jonathan Jaffe, best heads-up player in the world, is not going to chop with me unless I give him a sweet deal, which I'm not. So I sure better know what I'm doing, which is why I suggest you spend a lot of time studying and playing these games, because when you do find yourself there, you are often playing for significant money. I remember what the question was earlier. How do you deal with someone who goes all in on you a lot? Well, tighten up, play stronger ranges, and be willing to call them more often. Do I go to New Jersey to play? I've actually never played in an online site in New Jersey. It's harder than you would think to get from the Upper East Side in Manhattan to New Jersey. 4 people up ahead of you. Why is the pot 3 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1.75 equals 7.5? Why not just 5.5? You're not counting your call in there, I guess. It's just a math problem. You redraw for the final table. You have 20k. Gets to you. Small blind. You shove. Ace-Jack. That seems definitely correct to me. Ace-Jack is a good hand to shove for a shallow stack. Do you think Nick Petrangelo's course is worth $999? I don't know. I haven't taken his course. I assume it's decent to good. I don't know. I've not signed up. I do know they often discount the prices eventually, so patience is relevant. But this is it today. I actually have to go. I have to go be interviewed to see about getting my son into a private school. Actually, I'm not really getting interviewed. I'm being shown around a private school to try to make James smart. It's always good to try to be smart. You'd rather be smart than not smart. Given my Foxwoods example, I was first in chips. Would I ever fold king to be assured I get a higher place? Absolutely not. We're trying to win the tournament. And I have a huge edge. Kings are the nuts. Don't fold kings. Folding kings is a mistake. If you fold kings, you probably screwed up along the way. It's tough to know if it's worth it to send a 2.5-year-old to a private school, but you never know. Can't hurt. Maybe it can hurt. Who knows? All right, so I have to go today. Enjoy yourselves. Thanks for being here. Make sure you, if you do enjoy this, click subscribe, click like. Please share it with your friends. These little coffee episodes, they take a lot of time and may not seem like a lot of time, but I have to prepare. I have to set up this setup every single day. And share it with your friends. Also, if you got the email about the breakfast in Montreal, if you want to come, let me know. Don't say you're going to come unless you're actually going to come, but let me know. I'm excited to go to Montreal in about 2 weeks to try to win not just a title, but a belt. Have you all seen the belts they give away in Montreal? It's like a huge belt. It would cover this whole screen right now. That's how big the belt is. Mike Sexton has one. He won one there, I think 1.5 years or 2 years ago. And I don't get envious about much, but I'm rather envious about a gigantic belt. Because all I have are little dinky trophies that weigh 8 pounds. I want a belt that weighs 100 pounds. Yeah, macho man here. All right, have a good day. Enjoy yourselves. Be nice to someone. And I'll talk to you later.